This is the Nike Vomero 18, which is Nike's new line of maximum cushion shoes, or I say new in quotation marks because they are doing that whole thing with the Nike Pegasus Plus, Nike Pegasus Premium, regular Nike Pegasus. So now this is actually the 18th iteration of the Nike Vomero, but there's going to be a Nike Vomero Plus and a Nike Vomero Premium, but this is the OG Vomero, and I am excited to give you guys my full thoughts and review on it. So let's get right into it. Starting out with the outsole, looks like a pretty standard Nike waffle traction pattern, and honestly, plain and simple, it worked really well in my opinion. So I wouldn't say it's the best traction that I've ever had on every single surface that I ran on, but it did give decent traction on basically every surface that I threw at it. So light trails, mostly road running, a little bit of wet conditions, a little bit of dry conditions, a little bit of sand, and honestly, I never felt one time where I felt like I was unstable in the shoe based on the traction alone. I thought that the traction held up very well on a multitude of different surfaces, as well as it did rain a little bit actually here in LA, so I did get to test it a little bit in the rain as well. And honestly, it performed just like the Nike Pegasus did, and I'm assuming like a lot of other traditional Nike shoes that have that Nike waffle classic traction pattern. So traction for me was good. As for durability, I have about 35 miles on this pair right here, and I do see some wear on the nubs or the waffle lugs. Each waffle lug has a little bit more of an extra nub, and some of those nubs are already gone. So I think that that is pretty indicative of how soft the rubber on the outsole is for this waffle pattern. And I think that since the waffle lugs are pretty thick, I still think that these are gonna last a decent amount of time. I would say maybe average to maybe a little bit below average, but I think that the softness of the outsole kind of contributes to the good traction performance as well as the underfoot feel when it comes to cushioning, which I'll get into in a sec. So durability, I would say that for me, maybe these will last 200 to 300 miles from an outsole point of view. I do think that the outsole is a little bit on the softer side, so I don't think it's gonna be as durable as some of the other daily trainers out there, but I do think that it's still gonna hold its own. And I guess it depends on the person and the running form, how long the outsole is going to last. But for me, I think that it's decent in durability. I wouldn't say it's above average, and I wouldn't say it's too far below average. I think it's maybe a touch below average to average in durability for the outsole. Now moving on to the main event of the Vomero and every running shoe for me personally, it's the cushioning. So this year, Nike opted to give us a pretty exciting setup in my opinion. So they threw in Nike Zoom X, which is Nike Superfoam. I don't exactly know if it's gonna be the same compound as the Alphafly and the Vaporfly's Zoom X, which I kind of highly doubt, especially nowadays. A lot of brands say that it's, you know, one foam, but it's actually a different formulation. But they have Nike Zoom X on the top of the midsole, and then on the bottom of the midsole, it is a full-length React X foam. As for stack height, it is 46 millimeters in the heel, dropping to 36 millimeters in the forefoot, giving it that classic 10 millimeter heel to toe drop that Nike loves. And you know, you either love them or hate them. For me, I'm kind of a little bit indifferent. I think that the 10 millimeter heel to toe drop works pretty well in the shoe, and I kind of talked a little bit about it in my first run review, but I think that now that I've put in more miles, I can confirm that it is a good setup in my opinion. And the reason for that being is when you have a very high stack running shoe, a lot of the times you feel a little bit sluggish when you have less than 8 millimeters or 6 millimeters of heel to toe drop because you have so much foam in the forefoot. Whereas when you have a higher drop and you have a big stack in the heel, I think that it really helps with the transitions of the shoe and you get the benefits of the max stack height in the heel. So how did this foam feel? I thought that it felt pretty versatile in my opinion, but it definitely is on the softer side. Now, Nike did want the Vomero line to be Nike's max cushion line now, so I did expect it to feel a little bit softer. Now, for those of you who have ran in the Nike Invincible line, which for me personally, I wasn't a huge fan of that line, but I did run in the 2 and the 3. The Zoom X in this shoe is definitely not as bouncy, and that could be due to that underlayer of the React X foam in the midsole, but I also think just in general, this Zoom X is pretty chilled out. It's a little bit more soft. I wouldn't say it's soft to the point where you can't really pick up the pace in the shoe. I think that it is a softer setup, but you can still run a little bit faster in the shoe based on that 10 millimeter heel to toe drop that I talked about. So I think that that 10mm heel to toe drop really helps you transition in the shoe, even though you have a higher stack in the heel. I am a heel striker to midfoot striker, so if you are a forefoot striker, you might not like this setup, but for me personally, I really liked it because as I was crashing down on the heel, I compressed the foam, and since there isn't as much foam in the forefoot due to that higher drop, I felt that my shoe or my foot could really hit the ground and transition nicely. And I also got a little bit more ground feel in the forefoot, which I personally like because it doesn't feel as sluggish and as slow as some other max cushion shoes. So overall, I think that the foam was very good. I think that for what Nike was creating the shoe for, which was a max cushion shoe, they kind of hit the nail on the head, and they give a little added versatility with the option to run a little bit faster because of that more minimal forefoot. So even though it sounds like a lot of foam, 36mm in the forefoot, I still feel like I felt a lot of ground feel. And for me, maybe that's because I am a bigger runner at 210 pounds, 6'1". I do think that over long runs as well, I was able to compress the foam quite a bit, not in a super bad way, but in a good way where I still felt the benefits of the impact protection and the foam, but I didn't feel so high off the ground where I felt like I couldn't really push at the ends of my long runs. So for the pace that I would recommend running in this shoe, for me personally, I got to as fast as half marathon pace in this shoe. I think anything faster than that, I didn't really want to run that fast in the shoe because I think it is more cushioned than other shoes. So for me personally, half marathon pace, I actually hit a half marathon PR in this shoe. I guess like I haven't really raced a half marathon, but just like when I was training for a 16-mile long run, I did run at an 8:40 pace. I honestly don't remember exactly what the time was for the half marathon because I wasn't even trying to PB, but I did hit it in this shoe. So I was actually pretty impressed that a max cushion shoe could kind of pick up the pace like that, especially over a long period of time. So in my experience, I think that this shoe is great for long runs. It's good for easy runs, recovery runs, and anything that a max cushion shoe you need it to do, this shoe can do. And if you need it to do a little bit more than a max cushion shoe, I think that this shoe can do that as well. Now, if you're expecting to do tempo workouts or run a PR in the mile, 5K in this shoe, I don't think that this is the shoe for you. And I honestly don't think that you're looking at this shoe for that reason. So take that with a grain of salt. I think that as a max cushion shoe, this setup is more than enough. And I felt perfectly fine when it came to how my body recovered and reacted to this shoe. Quickly touching on stability, as you know, the stack heights of shoes get higher and higher, let's talk about the stability. I felt that the base of the shoe was pretty wide and I didn't have really any problems with stability in this shoe. Now, I do want you guys to keep in mind that I am usually running in neutral running shoes. I don't really typically wear stability running shoes. I used to overpronate more when I was younger, but now I'm a little bit more neutral to, if anything, a little bit of a supinator. And I felt that the stability on this shoe was great. Even though it does have a high stack height, I think that the foam wasn't too unstable for me, as well as the base was wide enough where I felt comfortable doing long runs in the shoe and I didn't really have any stability issues. Now, you are still gonna have to be careful when you are running because if you do step on uneven surfaces, there's a chance of rolling your ankle with any shoe. So just keep that in mind. So if you typically run in neutral running shoes, I think that stability is gonna be fine in this shoe. If you typically wear stability running shoes and you're heavy overpronator, I don't think that you should get this shoe just because it's a little bit on the softer side. And if you overpronate, you know, with such a high stack height, it just could be a recipe for disaster. I think you should look elsewhere. So overall, cushioning was fantastic in the Nike Vomero 18. As you can probably tell with me rambling, I really love the setup on the Vomero 18. Moving on to the upper, I think that this upper is a basic, which is not a bad thing at all. I do think that there are a couple things that I still want to take from my first run review and talk about them now. I think that the lacing setup is kind of okay. I don't think that it's great. I think it does the job, but I personally never like when brands give you a little string as an eyelet just because it always makes me worried that it's gonna break. In the past, I've had Adidas basketball shoes. I think it's like the Adidas Crazy Lights, the low tops, but I remember tying the shoe and actually one of the strings broke and basically the shoe's not usable anymore. And I only had those shoes for 2 or 3 months. So I never like when brands use that little string because if the string breaks as the eyelet, you're not able to use it anymore. As for the rest of the upper, I think that it's just basically a dual mesh upper system and it has a gusseted tongue, pretty padded in the heel collar. So it is a typical setup for a running shoe and I think that it works really well. I don't think that they did anything extra, and they also didn't do anything below average. So I think that it's a pretty standard Nike mesh upper. If you have the Nike Pegasus 41s, I would say that it's maybe a little thicker of a mesh than the 41s, but it feels a little bit similar on foot. Now, how did the shoe fit? In my opinion, I think that these are a little bit more roomy than the Pegasus 41s. I thought that the Pegasus 41s fit my foot personally perfectly. I have a size 12 foot, US size 12, and I have a slightly wider than average foot, but I typically buy every running shoe in a regular size 12. I don't go narrow and I don't go wide. And I felt that that was the perfect size for the Vomero 18s as well. But there is a touch more room in the forefoot and the midfoot for me. So I think that if you have a narrow foot, you might be able to go down half a size as long as the length is okay for your foot. But I do think that this shoe is a little bit more roomy than the Pegasus 41. And I think it's a good thing because, you know, if you're taking the shoe on long runs, or maybe you have a little bit of swollen feet from, I don't know, the previous days, or, you know, you've just been walking all day, I think that it's nice that they give you a little extra room. Nike is kind of notorious for having narrow shoes in the past, and I think that with this new line and this new whole revamp, I think that they're kind of widening the last and kind of making it more for everyone. So I personally really like that. I wouldn't say that the fit is as good as the Nike Pegasus 41. I think that that shoe just fits my foot perfectly, but, you know, everyone's foot shape is shaped differently. So take that with a grain of salt, but I think you should go true to size if you have a wider foot or a normal foot, and then if you have a narrow foot, maybe you can go down half a size, but again, make sure that the length is okay if you can try them on in store. Last but not least, let's talk about ventilation. Honestly, there isn't much in the shoe. I have a white upper colorway, so it didn't get maybe as hot as if I got a black upper colorway, but I still didn't feel too much airflow within my feet, but I didn't have any blisters or anything like that, any discomfort when it came to the upper, which is always a good sign. I don't think that that was the ventilation, that was more probably the fit that helped me not get blisters. So overall, the upper I would say is average to maybe, I don't want to say below average. I think that the upper is average and it did its job fine. Heel lockdown was also very good. I did do the runner's loop and I had no problems with the heel lockdown at all. If anything, this is a very good shoe for heel lockdown. So maybe I would say that the upper is average to above average, because sometimes nowadays the shoes don't even lock your heel down. So I think that that's the minimum that you can ask for in a running shoe, is basic heel lockdown as well as a decent cushion setup. That's all you really need in a running shoe, and I think that this shoe fits the bill. So overall, at price at $150, do I recommend the Nike Vomero 18? 100% yes. And let me tell you guys why. So I did say that I was a Nike fanboy in my first run review. That still holds true. I don't think that I review these Nike shoes any differently than I do with other shoes. I just am very excited to test the shoes, which, I mean, you guys can kind of take as biased or not. But I genuinely believe that these shoes are very good. And the reason I say that is because thinking about the price point as well, $150, what other max cushion shoes can you get for $150, right? And can they compete in performance with this shoe? So I've tried the Nimbus 27, that's priced at $165, I believe now. That definitely did not feel as good as this shoe in my experience. All of these are my experience. The Bondi 9s that I recently reviewed, priced at $170. Maybe there's an argument that the cushion setup is a little bit more responsive than this shoe, but again, that's an extra $20. I also think that the upper on the Hoka Bondi 9, really cheap, doesn't feel as good, also gave me blisters on my foot. So again, I think the Vomero beats that, and it's $20 cheaper. Now, the only comparison that I can really think about for a max cushion shoe is the New Balance More V5. I think that that's the only shoe that can kind of hold a candle to this. But the difference between that shoe and this shoe is that heel to toe drop. That one has a 4mm heel to toe drop. This one has a 10mm heel to toe drop. So that gives it a little bit of a different ride and a different use case, in my opinion. It gives different feels in the shoes. So I think that at that point, these are the two best max cushion shoes. And I think at a certain point, it's kind of personal preference, whether you like that extra cushioning in the forefoot, as well as maybe the brands and maybe the foams that they use, right? Do you prefer New Balance's foam or Nike's foam? So I think objectively, more subjectively, that this shoe is a great value, and I think that a lot of people are gonna love it, especially once it goes on sale. Because the nice thing about Nike is that their shoes typically always go on sale. I don't want to jinx it. I know that the Nike Pegasus 41 you can actually get for pretty cheap now. I've seen them under $100. I've seen them as low as $80 in some of the Nike factory stores, so that is a great deal. I think that if you get this shoe in conjunction with the Nike Pegasus 41, you're gonna have a pretty solid running rotation, with regards of if you're okay with not having a plated option. But I just think that Nike is really trying on their running lineup, and I am very excited for it. And objectively, I think that these are very good shoes. Even if you covered the logo and you just sent me this pair and I just ran in it, I would really like this shoe as well. Also, I'm not sponsored or anything. No one is paying me to say this. I paid for these shoes by myself. So I just genuinely think that this is a good value, and I like the direction that Nike's going. Now, when it comes to the Plus and the premium line of the Pegasus or the Vomero, now we can talk about whether or not that those shoes are worth it. Because first of all, I'm gonna go on a little rant. First of all, I couldn't get the Pegasus Premium because I didn't know that it was gonna sell out. I didn't even know that people really liked that shoe that much. I thought a lot of people thought it was gonna be overpriced. I thought that, it's a running shoe, so I don't know if people really care about it. But yeah, the white and orange colorway sold out, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll get the black and orange colorway, which was supposed to release on March 5th. I checked March 5th and it didn't release yet, and then the next time I checked, which was March 6th, it said it was sold out. So I was like, okay, like I guess these are gonna be pretty hard to get. So I don't know if I'm gonna review the Pegasus Premium because they are decently hard to get, or I haven't really found them yet. And also, like I kind of want like a nice colorway too, or a colorway that I personally like for that shoe, and I don't think they're releasing a lot of colorways. The Pegasus Plus, let's talk about that. I think that is not a good value. I've tried them on in store, didn't purchase them because I was not impressed. I also think that, I don't know, it doesn't make sense for me like in the lineup, I guess, because it's, I think, a lower stack height, and then it has full length Zoom X, which when I tried on in store, like it didn't feel really good. And then priced at $180, I felt like it didn't really make any sense. Why was it so expensive? Like, I don't know. So I think that the Vomero Plus and the Vomero Premium also might be kind of like, I might be put off by those models, but I think that the standard Vomero, if all else fails, the Plus and the Premium, if they're ridiculous price points as well, I think that you're gonna be good to go with the Vomero 18. So sorry for that little rant, but if you really think that I'm a Nike fanboy, I would not be shitting on the other like shoes in the lineup, which is the Pegasus Plus and the Pegasus Premium. Not really hating on the Pegasus Premium yet. Maybe I'm just salty I haven't gotten them yet, but we'll see if I end up reviewing them. So again, I try to be as objective as I can with these reviews. I'm just saying, personally in my personal life, with Nike, I have like a lot of their basketball shoes. I've had, basically every sport shoes, like I've had Nike, and I've really liked a lot of their stuff, especially back in the day. Nowadays, like it's kind of hit or miss. So yeah. Sorry for my little rant, but that's gonna pretty much wrap up my review on the Vomero 18. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you guys, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Also, I'm probably gonna make a comparison video with this and the New Balance More V5 because I think that those are the two best max cushion shoes that money can buy right now. I guess like in the price range of 150 to 155, because I also think that the Brooks Glycerin Max can maybe compete with these two, but I also know that that's a $200 shoe, so that's not really fair to compare to these ones. But I think, spoiler alert, I don't think that the Brooks Glycerin Max is that much better, if better at all, than these two models, so that's just my opinion. So thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry for the extra long video, but had to get some stuff off my chest. Thank you. Catch you in the next one. Peace.